Hello! Today I'm going to be sharing with you guys the 5 books that changed my life and will change your life too if you decide to read them. I am so sure of it because they are so thought-provoking, and I think that once you read something and you really understand it, you will never go back to your original way of thinking. I chose 5 different topics, so there's going to be psychology and human behavior for number 1, personal growth and mindset for number 2, creativity for number 3, success and wealth for number 4, and finally spirituality for number 5. Starting off with psychology and human behavior, this book is actually my favorite book of all time, but it is also my favorite book in this category. The Laws of Human Nature by Robert Greene. Everybody talks about the 48 Laws of Power, but this I think is actually his best book. And I will say, I have read his other books. I read the 48 Laws of Power, I read The Art of Seduction, but this book I think has the best advice and stories and observations about humans and how we are in the world, and that is why it had such a big impact on my life, because it just showed me so much about humans. And I'm going to share with you why you should care about human nature, because understanding human nature really does help you in life. So here are the 5 reasons why you should even care about human nature, or why you might even consider reading this book. Number 1, understand human nature to navigate social situations better. Number 2, control emotions to make rational decisions. Number 3, recognize manipulation and influence tactics used by others. Number 4, develop self-awareness to overcome personal weakness. And finally, number 5, adopt a long-term perspective in relationships, business, and personal growth. Okay, so this book has so much about human nature. It is one of the best books I have ever read, and I read so much, so saying that means a lot. There's gonna be 18 laws of human nature in here, and I think that every single one of them is important. Like, not one law was I like, okay, this doesn't really matter. No, every single one of them is important, and the story is in there. And I'm gonna share with you guys one of my favorite stories because it really opened my eyes. There was a story about Coco Chanel, and I had no idea about this, but when she was younger, her mother had passed away, and then her father had dropped her and her sister off at a convent in France. And this is similar to a foster home, and she still became Chanel and developed one of the biggest fashion brands and was one of the wealthiest people in the world at that time. Not wealthiest woman, wealthiest people. In these stories, I mean, this one really resonated with me because it shows you no matter where you come from, no matter what your background is, like if you just set your mind to something and don't have the victim mentality, you can achieve anything you want to achieve. And there's multiple stories in this book that will really open your eyes and show you where people started off and then how they got there, and it gives you a lot of hope. And it kind of shows you maybe what is getting in the way of you achieving the things you want to achieve. And I think that once you understand, okay, this is what's getting in the way, then it is so much easier to move forward and fix those things. Then I just pulled out 2 quotes to share with you guys from the book because I just thought they were really good quotes. And one of them is actually not by Robert Greene. He was quoting Abraham Lincoln, but I thought it was such a good reminder. So the quote out of the book says, "As Abraham Lincoln said, I don't like that man. I must get to know him better." This really hits home, because every time I don't like someone or I feel a certain way about someone, I know that I really need to ask myself, why don't you like that person? And also, how well do you know that person? Because if I don't know the person very well, I can't not like them. Once you really know someone, it's really hard to not like them, or at least understand them and why they are the way they are. And the second quote says, "We see people not as they are, but as they appear to us. And these appearances are usually misleading." So again, this goes back to when we see people, our perception of them is not who they really are, because we perceive everything so differently in this world. I've talked about this before, but this is just another good reminder that we don't see people as they are, we see people as we are, and everyone has a different perception of people. And I think that is so useful to know when going through life, because we might have this perception of someone and it is completely untrue. And also for you personally and me personally, you know, if someone has a perception of me, it is not my responsibility to convince them that it's not true. If they want to come to get to know me, they can do that. But otherwise, that is totally up to them, because we all have our own perceptions of everything anyway. If someone has a bad perception of you or me, it's like we can't do anything. We're just gonna let them have that perception. And if they decide to come to get to know us better, they can do that. But if not, you know, that's on them. It's not on us. The whole let them theory, you know, just let them. Okay, now we're gonna move into personal growth and mindset. So this is the book I picked, 4 Agreements. This is a much thinner book compared to The Laws of Human Nature, as you can see. be much thinner, so this is a quicker read. It's so simple yet complex, and the ideas in it are just truly amazing. So the 4 agreements, if you don't know what they are 1, be impeccable with your word. This is saying speak with integrity and truth. Avoid gossip, lies, and any other words that can harm other people or yourself. And the idea that your words have power. So use them to create love and positivity. I think this is so good to remind ourselves that our words really do have power over us, and we need to be careful about how we talk to other people, but also how we talk to ourselves, how we talk about ourselves. The whole idea of just being as truthful as you possibly can, because every time we lie, it really does hurt ourselves and our perception of ourselves. So this is always a good reminder. Okay, the second agreement is don't take anything personally. This took me so long to learn, but once I learned it, it really does help set you free. And the whole idea around this is that what others say or do is a reflection of their own reality, not yours. And once you learn this, you can free yourself from seeking external validation. When you don't take things personally, the only person's word that matters is your own. What do you think about yourself? Are you a good person? Do you believe you're a good person? You know, it really just comes down to being who you are and not letting what other people say influence how you feel about yourself. And I know it's hard. I know it's hard, and sometimes, you know, I even still get caught up, especially if it's someone who I really care about, but learning to take things personally less is a good start. The third agreement is don't make assumptions. And this is one that I am still working very hard on today, because I am an overthinker. I overthink a lot of things because I just think a lot. Ever since I was young, I've just been a big, deep thinker. I can never just look at something and let it be what it is. I have to think about it and go back and analyze, but we're working on it. We are working on it. Anyway, going into this agreement, misunderstandings arise from assuming that we know how others think or feel, and we don't. So the way to combat this is to just ask the person. It's so simple, but when we start to make assumptions and make stories in our head, we might start to get upset at someone about something they didn't do, and it can be fixed simply by just asking the person, hey, I heard this happen, is that true? Or how do you feel? Or did I do something that upset you? But you need to have that communication and not assume that we just automatically understand how that person is thinking or feeling, because we don't. And the only person that we know how they're thinking or feeling is us. And finally, the 4th agreement is always do your best. We all have off days. We all have days where giving 50% is really giving 100%, because that's all we have to give. But just to continue to always do your best in whatever you're pursuing. Give it the effort that you have that day, and don't feel so discouraged if you have an off day, because we all have them. Everyone has them. If someone says they don't have them, I'm not sure that's true, because we all have days where we don't feel good, where we're very tired. But just do your best, and if you can only give 50% one day, that is totally okay, because you know what? The next day you can give 90% or 100%, but it's just always doing the best with what you have and not being so hard on yourself when you can't give it all that day, because it would be very hard to give it all every single day, all the time. And then the one quote I'm going to share from this book says, whatever happens around you, don't take it personally. Nothing other people do is because of you. It is because of themselves. We cannot control people, and it's always really important to control the things that you can do and just do your best to be a good person and pursue the things you love and be kind to others. But we cannot control other people, so it's just not worth stressing out about. Okay, the third category is creativity, and I picked this book, The Creative Act, A Way of Being by Rick Rubin. I was actually blown away by this book. I didn't really have a ton of expectations for it. I just saw it and I was like, okay, I'll order it because I love being creative. And it was so good. I do think that this book is really good if you can to read it on your own, because the way he writes it is very different than other books. It's not like as structured as the other ones I talk about, but it has such great ideas in it, and I will share with you guys some of the ones that I thought were the best. He mentions how creativity is a way of life. Like, it's not just something you do, but it's the way that you experience life and go through life and share how you're experiencing it. Another thing he talks about is how sensitivity and awareness, he talks a lot about awareness, and I'm going to share a quote with you guys in just a second, but how sensitivity, awareness, and curiosity fuel the artistic expression. I think it's a little bit known that artists tend to be very sensitive and vulnerable people, but that is what makes their art so amazing, because they experience life so deeply and feel so much that when it comes out in art, it's just beautiful. And a quote that he says in the book about this is that the people who choose to do art are many times the most vulnerable. He also talks about how the process matters more than the results. So when you're doing art, it's really just about the process and how you feel. And it's so important to just do the things that you feel. And when it comes out, you may love it, you may not, but it's all about the process. And lastly, creativity thrives in openness, stillness, and exploration. And another quote that I love from this book says, "Tomorrow presents another opportunity for awareness, but it's never the opportunity for the same awareness." And this just really made me realize how important it is to just stop during the day and just be aware of how you're feeling, of the things around you, honestly, just everything. This is a very, very, very good book, and it's a very easy read. It's written definitely different than other books I've read, but it is a quick read, so highly recommend. Moving on to the next category, success and wealth, I picked Psychology of Money. I actually was required to read chapters of this in my asset management class. I was in business school and I was studying finance, and this book is so important because it talks about how financial success is about behavior, not knowledge. I really think that if anyone is very interested in becoming wealthy, they should read this book because it really goes into detail about how our behavior affects how we are financially. And I think once reading this and understanding, it's a good way to start to pay more attention and realize where you could be doing more with the money you're making right now, or habits that you could get rid of that will help you long term. And I picked 3 quotes from this book that really stood out to me. So the first one is, "Spending money to show people how much money you have is the fastest way to have less money." And when I read this, I was like, this makes total sense. It reminded me of the movie Fight Club when he was saying, "We work jobs that we hate to buy things we don't need to impress people we don't like." And another quote I'm going to share with you guys from the book that kind of relates to that same idea is, "Saving is the gap between your ego and your income." So again, the stuff that we don't really need that we buy, we could be putting into savings, and compound interest is the biggest thing. Like if you put your money somewhere and you get compound interest on that, that is going to grow your money so much more than if you buy something and just use it a little bit and then get rid of it. Like there is so much that comes from investing and understanding investing. And I remember when I was at university, I used to think about this all the time because learning about investing and finance made me think, you know, why doesn't everyone know this? This makes so much sense about how people really build their wealth, but why is it that I'm in university, in a business school, in the finance classes, you know, like all these little stuff that I'm just now learning about these things? Like I didn't know about them. And this book I think will really help if you have not taken any courses on finance, just to understand the power of investing, saving your money, and all these things that will really help you build up wealth. And if you're going for financial freedom, get you to that point. Finally, the third and last quote I'm going to share with you guys, "Controlling your time is the highest dividend money pays." I am someone who is very conscious of time because time is something we never get back. Like we can always make more money, but we cannot buy time. Whatever time we have here, it's here. And then once that time is gone, once the day is gone, it's gone. So for me, this really pointed out like, hey, if I have to put in a ton of time to buy something that again, I don't need, or it's not going to enhance my life, or I'm buying it to impress people, like why am I doing that? You know, like why do I need to do that? Why would I trade so much time to just have something that I don't need, doesn't enhance my life? Like trust me, there are things that you will buy that will enhance your life, that will make your life easier, that will save you time. But it's these other little things that I'm just like, okay, if I buy this, I'm gonna have to put in more time to make the money back, or I could just not buy it and put that money towards my investments and have that grow, and in the end it will have a higher return than whatever I bought. So this book is very, very, very good, and I highly, highly, highly recommend, especially if you're someone going for financial freedom, which for me, that has been my goal for forever, is to be financially free, to not stress about money. And I think the concepts in this book really helped me get on the right track for that. And finally, book number 5 in the category for spirituality, I chose Becoming Supernatural by Joe Dispenza. I've talked about this book a few times, I think, on this channel, but I do think that this book really helped me understand meditation and spirituality better, and actually had information and practices that made my life and my spiritual life and just my mental health better. And that is why I picked it. I also think Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself is a very close runner-up. But something about this book, something about when I was reading it and I was writing about it and I was doing the things in the book, it was like for the first time, I just felt like I had no anxiety. And I had never felt that before. I don't know what it was. I just for once did not feel anxious. And I think the most important takeaways from this book is, one, your thoughts and emotions shape your reality. So changing them can change your life. And he talks about this in the book and how to do it and why you should want to do it, especially if you're someone who's just very unhappy. Like when I was reading this book, I was just not happy. Like, you know, like I was like, I'm just not feeling life. Another takeaway from the book is meditation and energy work can rewire the brain to promote healing. And this is why I am always talking about meditation and awareness, because that is the only thing that has helped me start to not be this anxious, just ball of stress. The next takeaway is living in a state of gratitude, love, and joy attracts positive outcomes. So our currency is our energy. And if we go out into the world and are just this loving and happy and grateful person, like we just will attract that back. And I think that this is something that can be hard if you're someone who does struggle with things like depression and anxiety, like myself, but just doing your best to combat those thoughts. And this book will give you suggestions about how to do that. And the last key takeaway I'm going to share with you is you are not a victim of your past. You can consciously create a new future. And I actually think I have done decent at this, but there are things that I can improve. And I do think that there is emotional trauma that is holding me back. And a lot of it's just how I view myself. And then one quote from this book that I'm going to share with you guys says, if you focus on the known, you get the known. If you focus on the unknown, you create a possibility. And this goes back into the idea that the unknown is scary. We can be addicted to feeling miserable because it's known, and the opposite of that is the unknown, which is unpredictable and it's very scary. But the only way to change is to go from the known to the unknown, and this book talks about this a lot. So I think it is very helpful if you're someone who's kind of struggling right now with just how you feel, or you want to change but you don't know how to. I think that this book will really help, because it really helped me. And for most of my life I have been a very habitual person because my childhood was very unpredictable and very unknown, and so I just latched on to things that I already knew, but I realized those things, or at least some of them, were hurting me, and I needed to let go of them and change something. And this book helped me do that. So yes, highly recommend. Okay, so those are the books that truly changed my life, and I do believe will change yours too if you decide to read them. I will share the books in the description down below, so if you want to check them out, feel free to do that. That is it for today's video. I hope you have a beautiful rest of your day, and I will see you very soon. Bye!